What's up, everyone? Welcome to the FA podcast. Happy Football Friday. Um, Somewhat of a decent news week. However, pretty slow still. So let's get right to it, though. We're gonna end the show like we did last time, previewing a couple positions in free agency, wide receivers and tight ends. What has become a big money position at the wide receiver spot there. But starting off, UFL news, just one note. St. Louis expected to host the 2025 UFL Championship, most likely date June 14th for the UFL Championship in 2025. So exciting stuff there. St. Louis, the Dome, a great place to watch a game. I've heard, anyways. I still haven't been, but yeah, the Dome in St. Louis expected to be the UFL Championship site. Battlehawks, another chance to host a title game there. NFL news: franchise tag window has opened. It is now open through March 4th. So I will be getting back to Pennsylvania on March 3rd from the Combine. And of course, the Combine is where a lot of news goes down in terms of trades and franchise tags, extensions, whatnot. So Bengals expected to use the tag on wide receiver T. Higgins if there is no long-term deal done. The hope is to get a long-term deal still and keep him for the foreseeable future with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. But if they cannot do that before the tag deadline closes, then they will franchise tag him for a second time in a row. Two other guys potentially going to get the tag: Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold, running back Aaron Jones, and corner Byron Murphy Jr. Those two guys cannot be franchise tagged because they moved their void date back to, I believe it's the day before free agency. So to get long-term deals done potentially. But Sam Darnold still is potential franchise tag candidate if the Vikings elect to go that route. And the Chiefs with guard Trey Smith, one of the top, if not the top interior offensive lineman available on the market this year, potentially getting tagged in Kansas City as well. The Chargers, they are going to be the home team for the Sao Paulo, Brazil game this year, Friday, September 5th. So that completes the international game series that we have this year. So we'll have the Chargers week one again in Brazil. The Jets and the Browns are hosting a game in London at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The Jags, they will be in London at Wembley. The Colts going to be in Berlin, the Dolphins in Madrid, and the Steelers in Dublin. Waiting to see, of course, the schedule coming out in April for the full breakdown of who those teams are playing in those cities. The salary cap, not officially announced, but the range for the salary cap was announced. $277.5 million, $281.5 million is what it's going to be within, up $53 million the last 2 years combined. So significant cap increase and money increase for teams to start spending. One retirement to announce: Cowboys guard Zach Martin has retired. Excellent player, Hall of Famer, I think, potentially first ballot. Drafted by the Cowboys in 2014, first round, 16th overall. Played with the Cowboys his entire career, 2014 to 2024. 7-time first team All Pro, 2-time second team All Pro, 9-time Pro Bowler, member of the 2010s All Decade team. Played and started in all 162 career games, and did the same in all 9 playoff games he played in. So just an excellent player, one of the best players of the 2010s, and a great one. Hangs it up at age 34 there. And like I said, Hall of Famer for sure. We'll see if he gets in first ballot or not, but it's hard to argue with those stats. 9 times an All-Pro, 9 times a Pro Bowler in his 11 seasons in Dallas. The only 2 seasons he didn't get those accolades were the 2 seasons he only played 10 games. This past season, and I think it was 2019 or 2020. Coaching carousel, the Eagles, they have their new offensive coordinator. It is they promoted associate head coach, pass game coordinator Kevin Patullo to the head coaching or the offensive coordinator position there. So he takes over somewhat of continuity for Jalen Hurts, a guy that he's heard from before, and they can continue to build off their success they had last year, winning the Super Bowl. The Saints, former Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, the new head coach, he has his two coordinators, hiring Eagles quarterbacks coach Doug Nussmeier as the offensive coordinator and former Chargers head coach Brandon Staley as the defensive coordinator. So two excellent hires there. Nussmeier, rising star there in Philly, and comes with Kellen Moore with his ring to New Orleans. Injuries. One surgery to note, Eagle center Cam Jurgens. He had back surgery to alleviate some nerve issues. Expected to return in July by training camp. Releases. It's that time of the year. We are getting closer and closer to free agency. It comes really quickly right after the combine. So teams are starting to shed cap. And 49ers, they released veteran linebacker Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles. Patriots releasing linebacker Sione Takitaki. Panthers released corner Dane Jackson. And the Bengals, they released defense tackle Sheldon Rankins. $9.618 million freed up in cap space for Cincinnati, trying to get T. Higgins money under their cap. Couple of extensions that went down. The Chargers, they signed safety Elijah Molden to a 3-year, $18.75 million extension. $13.5 million guaranteed. Pretty solid deal for the safety market, and a guy that was excellent for the Chargers whenever they traded for him right before the season. Panthers, they have signed quarterback Andy Dalton to a 2-year, $8 million extension, $10 million max, $6 million guaranteed there. And I think that's an important move for Carolina and Coach Canales, because it just makes too much sense. Bryce Young loved working with Andy Dalton. They have a great working relationship, and he's a fantastic mentor to Bryce Young. And I don't know how much of Bryce's great play down the stretch was Dalton as the catalyst, but I still think it's an excellent move for Carolina and GM Dan Morgan there. And the Bengals, they re-signed a couple special teamers, signing punter Ryan Rical to a 2-year extension and long snapper Cal Adamitis to a 1-year extension. So all of their 3 specialists locked up now, with Evan McPherson coming back from injury. And that is all the news I got. So let's roll into wide receiver free agency here. So these are not all the names of the wide receivers. There was, of course, a bunch, probably one of the most populated positions because of how many teams roster, 5 or 6, depending on the squad, potentially even 7. But yeah, so obviously the big ticket money is T. Higgins right now. I'm waiting to see what Cincinnati can get done in terms of a long-term deal or a franchise tag and trade potentially. I think he is definitely maybe the only wide receiver one you're going to find in this year's class, except for, obviously, you have Deebo Samuel wanting a trade out of San Francisco. Devontae Adams could get added to this list as well if the Jets release him. Chris Godwin, though, coming back from the broken ankle week 7, probably going to stay in Tampa. That's what most people think. Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Brandon Cooks, I'll potentially add in there, and D-Hop. All 5 of those guys, veteran guys that have lost a little bit, but I still think are solid options and solid wide receiver 2s. I think Stephon Diggs probably is the best out of those guys, but he's also coming back from an ACL. So we'll have to see how he looks coming back from that injury. You got Marquise Brown. I really like him as a sleeper in this wide receiver class. And the biggest sleeper of all, I think Mac Hollins. Mac Hollins made himself a ton of money in Buffalo this year. Had a great season with Josh Allen, and would not be surprised the Bills try to re-sign him. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he outprices the Bills. He's a guy I really like in this class. Nick Westbrook Akina, Marquez Valdez Scantling, those two hyphenated names, those guys I think are going to make themselves some money, especially MVS. MVS, deep threat in New Orleans. It didn't matter who was throwing in the ball. He had a great year on a down season for the Saints. And Nick Westbrook Akina, kind of the same thing for Tennessee. Just deep shot after deep shot, whether it was Will Levis or Mason Rudolph. Didn't matter. He had a solid year there. The one weird one is Deontay Johnson. Not sure what his market is going to be, if at all. Not sure. Mike Williams, his former teammate there. I think Pittsburgh might look to re-sign him depending on the price there. He could be an interesting one. I know a lot of people like Darius Slayton in this year's draft class, in this year's free agency class. And he could be another guy that can make some money. Wide receiver needs in terms of draft that I have written down here. I think I feel like I have wide receiver as almost every single team because you need so many. But in terms of number one need, Arizona needs help from Marvin Harrison Jr. I would not be shocked if they try to maybe re-sign Rondale Moore. I don't think that trade worked out for either squad, with Desmond Ridder going to the Cardinals and eventually released Rondale Moore going down with an injury early in the season before he even really got going. So I would not be shocked if they are in the wide receiver 2 market. Some of those older guys, potentially Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, D-Hop coming back to Arizona. That would be something to see. New England, I have 2 wide receivers. I think they're going to get one in the draft and potentially in free agency. They are definitely in the T. Higgins sweepstakes. I think they have to be. Like, they have to get Drake May a guy or 2, and I think if the Bengals are open to it, I think New England could potentially be a trade partner for T. Higgins there. Those are actually no, one more. New Orleans. New Orleans is the only other wide receiver team that I have as their number one need. New Orleans, Chris Olave, the concussion questions are going to continue to come up with him until he squashes them. But I think there's a definite need in New Orleans with Marquez Valdez Scantling being a free agent. And they still have Rashid Shaheed, but they need more to help Derek Carr out and potentially whoever the next quarterback is in NOLA there for Kellen Moore. So definitely I think they're going to be in the wide receiver market. They're in cap constraints as they always are in New Orleans, but we'll see what they can do in the draft and wide receiver market. Wide receiver as the number 2 need, Buffalo times 2 because they have free agents. Matt Collins, Amari Cooper. I think they have 1 or 2 others potentially down the depth chart, but those 2 are the big ones. And still have Khalil Shakir, still have Keon Coleman, the young guys. But I would not be shocked if they try to re-sign Cooper. He didn't have a great year, so I think he could be within Buffalo's price range, depending on what they're doing with other contracts and retirements and whatnot. I have Cleveland as a wide receiver team. Number 2 need for them. Yeah, they need to get Deshaun Watson help. I mean, Elijah Moore is a free agent. You can see there. You also have, I think 1 or 2 other free agents. Maybe I was wrong, but Deshaun Watson needs help. Like, if he's going to be the guy or whoever, if they draft a guy, they need help at wide receiver. So, yeah, go get him. I know T. Higgins is not going to be an option for Cleveland because of money and because it's in division, unless he's a free agent. But why not go get one of the other guys? Bring Amari Cooper back potentially. DeAndre Hopkins, I think, would be an interesting one as well. Marquise Brown, get a flyer. Nick Westbrook Akina. I have the Giants as a wide receiver spot. You see Darius Slayton, the free agent there. They need a wide receiver too to go with Malik Neighbors and whoever is going to be their new quarterback this coming year. So uh, I don't think they would go for T Higgins. I think they would be in the secondary veteran market, looking at guys like Tyler Boyd, Matt Collins, Westbrook Akina, Tutu Atwell would be an interesting one. MVS, Juju, Sterling Shepard coming back to New York would be an interesting one. Kadero Hodge had a great year in Atlanta. But yeah, I think those are the types of guys that the Giants will be looking at potentially. I mean, I think they have money though, so they could prove me wrong and go bigger, I guess. Tennessee, obviously, they need help. Nick Westbrook-Akina, a free agent. They needed help. Tyler Boyd, free agent as well. They needed help regardless of their free agents, guys. They need to get Calvin Ridley, a running mate there for whoever is going to be the quarterback this coming year. And the last one's Washington. Washington, they have Terry McLaurin, of course, but look at the Washington receivers that are free agents: KJ Osborne, Jamison Crowder, Olamide Zaccheaus, Noah Brown. A lot of free agents at the wideout position. Obviously, those are all going to be lower level contracts and not bank busters. But I still think that Washington needs to get Jaden Daniels a solid 1B or a 2 to go with Terry McLaurin because he's not getting any younger either. So they definitely need help at the pass catcher position there in Washington to take the next step, I think. So yeah, that's the teams that I have with number 1 or number 2 needs with wide receivers. Like I said, almost every team I have wide receiver listed at one of the needs in terms of the top 5 or 6. So yeah, let's go to tight ends here. So looking at the tight end class, not really a clear cut top guy. I think it's kind of a muddled tight end free agency class. Obviously, that could change. I To be honest, I do think Tawan Johnson is the guy, the number 1 guy, and I would not be shocked New Orleans wanted to get him back. However, he did have his best career season, 50 catches, 500 yards this year with multiple quarterbacks. So I would not be shocked if he finds a place like Denver, goes back with his coach Sean Payton, or somewhere else, which I'll get to the needs in a second in terms of tight ends. But Zach Ertz's career renaissance this year in Washington, had an excellent season. Would not be shocked if Washington brings him back. He's not going to cost a ton, and if he likes the culture there in Washington, they proved last year that they are capable of making a deep run, and I think that if there's mutual interest, that he would go back to the Commanders this season. Tyler Conklin, Mo Alley Cox, Durham Smythe. A lot of tight end 2s here. Harrison Bryant, Austin Hooper. Mike Gesicki is a guy that had a great year in Cincinnati. I really like him. I don't think they're going to be able to afford to bring him back. I think he's definitely going to go elsewhere to his third team, potentially. You got Hayden Hurst, Johnny Munt, CJ Uzama was a sleeper in Philadelphia, didn't do a lot, was hurt a lot. Ian Thomas, Ross Dwelly, Michael Pruitt, Tommy Tremble, Nick Vanette, Irv Smith Jr., Josiah DeGuara, Kylan Granson there. Yeah, again, it's a ton of backup tight ends. You're not going to get a lot of ball production from these guys. There's a lot of good blockers, like Chris Manhertz is an excellent H-back. Kenny Yeboah doesn't have a lot of experience. Mercedes Lewis still kicking around there, going into his 21st season, I believe. Eric Saubert is a good H-back as well, as is Josiah DeGuara. Tyler Davis, a great third tight end. Jack Stoll, I would love for him to come back to Philadelphia. They need some tight end depth there. John Bates had a great year in Washington as the tight end 2 or 3, depending on who was injured for the Commanders there And yeah, so in terms of tight ends, there is not a single team that I have tight end as the number one option. Number two need, though, Denver. Like I said, Jawan Johnson makes a ton of sense coming back with Sean Payton, the guy that drafted him. Denver has a need at tight end. They did not get a ton of production there. Greg Dulcich was hurt most of the year, and I think they're probably going to move on from him eventually. But a guy just actually got added to the tight end free agency list. Tight end Gerald Everett for the Bears, $5.5 million saved for Chicago there. So he's definitely going to be one of the top options, I think. A move tight end, not really a great blocker, but a guy that can give you some decent ball production there. But yeah, Denver, though, I think makes a ton of sense for Jawan Johnson to fill out the offense a little bit more for Bo Nix. I also had tight end 2 as the second need for Indianapolis. The Colts, obviously, you look at it, Kylan Granson, Mo Alley Cox, both free agents there. They need to fill out that tight end room again. I would not be shocked if one or both are back. They're not going to cost a ton to the salary cap. Alley Cox might, but I highly doubt it. So would not be shocked if they look at that or potentially draft one. You never know. And those are the only 2 I have as the second need for a tight end. Tight end as a third need. All right, well, let's actually go to the rest of the teams that I have tight end as a need for, because there really aren't a lot. I thought there were a lot more than the 2 that I already said, Denver and Indianapolis, but there's really not a ton. I have the Chargers as their 6th need as a tight end. You can see there Hayden Hurst is a free agent, as is Stone Smart. So they just need to fill out the tight end room, and I think they re-signed Stone Smart. He's a restricted free agent, so they own his rights anyways. So I think they get him back for sure, and then look at potentially going after one in the draft. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be first round because they have, like I said, 5 other needs in front of that. But depending on what they do in free agency, they could potentially go after one in the draft. I have tight end as the 6th need for the 49ers as well. I think they have to start looking at the future of the position with George Kittle in his 30s now. They drafted a tight end a couple years ago, and I am blanking on his name. It wasn't Cameron Latu, I don't think. Yeah, so Eric Salbert is a free agent anyways. Braden Willis, they drafted in the 7th round 2 years ago. They also have Jake Tongas there. So yeah, they need upgrades. Braden Willis, not really proven as a 7th rounder a couple years ago. But I do think they need to upgrade that position regardless, behind George Kittle. Potentially get a guy back that they lost in free agency last year, Ross Dwelly, from Atlanta. And then the last one, I'm going to go to Washington again. I have that as their 4th need. Obviously, you have Zach Ertz there, John Bates, both free agents. So, again, I think Zach Ertz likes Washington. I think he will want to return there. I think Dan Quinn likes him as a veteran leader in the locker room as well. So, depending on what the finances look like, I would not be shocked if both him and John Bates are back next year for the Commanders, with Ben Sinnott potentially taking over the top role as the tight end 1 there in his 2nd year in the league. So yeah, that is the wide receiver, tight end, free agency class preview. Next Friday, it's going to be a fun one. I'm going to be in Indianapolis, and we're going to be starting our mock draft series. Eagles, Chiefs. We're going reverse order of the draft. So Eagles and the Chiefs will be the first mock we do next Friday. super excited to start mocking. I haven't done a ton yet, but it's time. It's going to be time. Go time, March, and then April. We're going to be mocking like crazy every single show as we roll through free agency and everything else, UFL and whatnot. So don't forget to follow us on all our social media at FAA Podcast on Instagram and X, FAA_bets on X as well. FAApodcast.com is our website. You can check us out here on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Instagram, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio and TikTok at FAA.podcast. And we will see y'all back on Monday.